Hey, Joan.
I wanted you to see that I was here because I know I'm a little bit late. I got behind the bicycles.
Yeah. The bicycles are
Everywhere.
out in force today.
Well, they all the road today.
Yes, they do. It's okay. If I remembered, I'd have left early.
Me too. I don't know, 10 o'clock earlier.
Well, I'm not retired yet, so 10 o'clock is a blessing.
Really?
I'm not going to sleep till 7.
And I'll tell you, it's when something happens. 10 o'clock, nothing.
Yeah, really. I just wanted to ask. You finish your message? Do you want to introduce them?
Yes, and thank you for asking give you a sense of the start. Just it's nice to have space.
Testing, testing. Can you hear me all right?
Are we using that mic now rather than the?
It's whatever you want.
I'm fine.
Okay. Me too. Just, okay. You can't hear me? You can't hear me? Carrie? 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 Sound check. Can we turn it up a little bit, please? Carrie? Carrie? Is it up? Can you hear now? Can everybody hear? Okay. Thank you. Wow, I don't know why we get such great musical talent in this place. I think I know, but I know that we are blessed to have people of the caliber of Jonathan and Dana with us today. So, welcome. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Door County. My name is Mark Richards. I am your service leader today. No matter who you are, what you believe, where you're from, who you love, you are welcome here. We are so happy to see you today. As is our tradition, if you are new to our fellowship, or if you have been away for a long time, we invite you to stand and introduce yourself as you will, and let us welcome you properly. And it looks like we just got a bunch of old timers here. Well,
My name is Elizabeth Kramer. I'm from New York City, and I'm visiting my longtime friend Penny Block. I've known since we were 14.
wow. Well, welcome. Thanks for coming. Okay, there are some announcements, I think, written on the back of your order of service. If there are other announcements that relate to the fellowship, Terry will bring you the microphone and you can share them with us.
Good morning, Cindy Nelson. I'm in the process of setting up circle suppers for our next quarter. And I am just want to make this announcement to welcome any of you who perhaps are not participating now, used to participate, would like to come back in, have never participated, would like to try it. Please send me an email or stop me after the service today. Thank you.
Okay. So our chalice lighting this morning comes from the Reverend David Johnson. We rejoice together in the comfort of community, the nurture of friendships, the pleasure of being, and the joys of marvelous achievements. We sing together, praising, creating, receiving, rejoicing. We kindle together our chalice to assert the presence of the eternal in our midst. And now please rise as you are willing and or able to join in the singing of hymn number 99, Nobody Knows the Trouble I've Seen. When we finish, please remain standing for the unison affirmation and doxology. We gather together to seek knowledge and wisdom, to explore freely the vast reaches of mind and spirit, to celebrate within a caring community those truths, ancient and modern, which give meaning and direction to our lives. So I was supposed to share this with you before all of that. Now I'm going to share it now. This is a poem by Adam Zagajewski. It's entitled Try to Praise the Mutilated World. Try to praise the mutilated world. Remember June's long days and wild strawberries, drops of rosé wine. The nettles that methodically overgrow the abandoned homesteads of exiles. You must praise the mutilated world. You watched the stylish yachts and ships. One of them had a long trip ahead of it, while salty oblivion awaited others. You've seen the refugees going nowhere. You've heard the executioners sing joyfully. You should praise the mutilated world. Remember the moments when we were together in a white room and the curtain fluttered. Return in thought to the concert where music flared. You gathered acorns in the park in autumn and leaves eddied over the earth's scars. Praise the mutilated world and the gray feather a thrush lost and the gentle light that strays and vanishes and returns. With that, we will offer up the joys and concerns of the fellowship, a time to help to celebrate with those who are experiencing uplifting events and those to be present, and time to be present with those who are experiencing times of distress. Terry will bring the mic around.
I have great joy. It's the first time in a long time I can have this much joy. Yesterday morning, I had 3 brownie troops from Bailey's Harbor come to my house with their leaders and plant 288 trees.
Wow.
And when I first saw those trees delivered to my house, it was like, oh no, do I have to do this again? And lo and behold, 9 o'clock Saturday morning, there were all these wonderful children getting a badge. And it was so fun and it's so exciting. And they were so excited and they knew exactly what to do and how to safely plant the tree so it would live. And that was what they cared about. And it was just absolutely delightful. Anyway, I had to share this wonderful joy.
Thank you.
And I had 3 nieces from Arizona visiting me for a day, and they are so wonderful. I can't believe they're mine, but we had a great time, and they're coming again next year. So You
Wonderful.
must like it here. And I like it that they like it.
Yeah, I got to see the game of the ages on Friday night. Gibraltar was down by 2 touchdowns. They came back and they beat Algoma 50-53 on a 43-yard field goal in overtime.
Wow. Whoa.
Well, my joy this summer has been my garden, which just exploded with huge plants. However, a lot of zucchini escaped notice until they were too large. So I have about 6 large zucchini in my car. If anyone would like to make zucchini bread or some other recipe like that, please see me after the service.
Or maybe a zucchini canoe. Okay. Okay. We come to the time on our service where we have the opportunity to offer our wealth to the services of this community. Please give generously. And now I invite you to settle into our time of silence. I invite you to put your feet flat on the ground, sit up, let whatever thoughts are in your mind flow away. Let whatever thoughts come into your mind flow out. are delighted this morning to have our longtime friend, Joan Shields, come and speak to us today. Besides the bio that's in the order of service, I can tell you that she is a devotee of Henry David Thoreau and enjoying her retirement, as she told me. Welcome, Joan.
Sort of retired. There was a time in my life for many years when I attended a lot of storytelling events, not only ones near my home, but I traveled around the country to some of the best. And my ears were always attuned for the name of a good storyteller who had appeared on the circuit. And the name David Roach kept coming around. And I knew nothing about him, except that he could tell a great story. So when I saw that he was going to do a performance near my home, I determined to go see him. Now, when you first see David Roach, you don't see the person, you see the packaging. It's human nature to run your eyes over the twisted scars and discolored gouges that have misshapen his face. He was born with an extensive benign tumor on the bottom left quadrant of his face, which surgeons tried to remove when he was very young. And in the process, they removed his lower lip and then gave him such extensive radiation that the lower part of his face stopped growing. His face and his neck are covered with lumpen, plum-colored burns, and he has an odd placement of teeth and a peculiar opening where his mouth should be. Now, I sent Sarah that photo that's in your bulletin to give you some idea of his appearance. It's a black and white photo, so you can't see how purple and blue this disfigurement is, but it's very prominent. And some years ago, he was in performance at a local community center where I lived in California, and we waited expectantly. It was full house. And he stepped into the spotlight and in front of the audience of about 100 grown-ups and children, including me and my 14-year-old son. And I immediately saw my son cringe and look away. David Roach stood silently in the spotlight, letting everyone get a good look at him. And after a minute or so, he spoke to us in a voice that did not sound garbled, but something like a brogue, something like a Scottish Persian might sound like after a big shot of Novocaine. And he suggested that we ask him together and in a conversational tone, David, what happened to your face? And when we did, he explained about the tumor and the surgery and all those radiation burns. He was in his 50s in those days, with silvery hair, bright blue eyes. He was a small man. And on stage, he wore a plum purple shirt, color coordinating with his disfigurement. And he began to tell us his story through this crazy mouth with a jumble of teeth and one lip and a too large tongue. His damaged facial muscles prevented much expression, so you had to watch his eyes. And they did the work along with his expressive, delicate hands. David told us that he had learned that facial disfigurement culturally is a curse and has been throughout history, particularly a long history in the theater. The Phantom of the Opera is a character totally defined by his disfigurement. forced by the playwright to live forever in the dark dungeons of the opera. His message is despair. Now, when you get to Freddy Krueger, it's really evil that is conveyed by his terrible disfigurements in his and his slasher film counterparts. Barely human, driven by insanity because of his deformity, we're told. And Quasimodo, the misshapen hunchback of Notre Dame, doomed forever to live alone with the church bells as his only companion. And of course, there are some counterexamples. Disney made a cute little Quasimodo in his animated Disney Hunchback of the Notre Dame. We all love that cute little Quasi, but just as friends, there was no romantic line in that story. He had to be satisfied to ring his own bells. And I know my gut response to seeing David Roach for the first time was one of revulsion. I felt it in my stomach and in my heart. I saw it in the reaction of my teenage son, who looked at me pleadingly, asking me with his eyes if he had to stay for the performance. Because, you see, we didn't see the person. We only saw the package. And we judged. According to the Christian scripture, we sat there with logs in our eyes, unable to see the heart and the mind and the courage of the true person of David Roach, someone who had merely had something awful happen to his face. He said that, like many people with permanent disfigurements, he feels like it would be really nice not to have to live with his face and the limitations posed by that disfigurement. But he said that the social isolation and alienation that he experienced was by far the most difficult to endure. But he had learned, he said, that the face is the locus of the human persona, and at the deepest level, a distorted face can signify that God or the universe or whatever may be quirky or careless, or maybe even vengeful and punitive. When most people see a disfigured face, it serves to them an unconscious reminder that the whole human experience, including their own, is one of being basically flawed, constantly vulnerable. With this sort of cultural and religious background, the damaged face becomes the most repulsive of disfigurements. Now, in David's case, the disfigurement did not cause him any pain. It did not reduce his mobility. It did not threaten his life. When he was all alone, he didn't have anything wrong with his face or his body. David's disability was not in his eyes or his mind, but in ours. It was our eyes that created his disability. It was but a speck in his own eye, while it was our turning away that exposed the log in our eyes as a great sin. Because, we walk around, we normal people, most of us disfigured somewhere on the inside, carrying our own deformities within us, our prejudices, our fears, our insecurities, and even and most especially those logs we carry in our eyes people who don't look or seem like we do. Prevents us from seeing them as people and reduces them to being packages. And Jesus warned us about that judging. He said, in the same way that you judge, you will be judged. Would you want to be judged by your disability? Now, David talked openly about his life with his twisted and colored face, and he said, I believe that seeing and accepting one's own flawed condition is a core spiritual experience, an essential step in developing emotional maturity for all people, disabled and otherwise. He says, those of us with facial deformities are children of the dark. But we can see in the dark, and we can see you turn away. But one day we finally understand that you turn away not from our faces as much from your own fears, from those things inside you that you think mark you as invaluable or unlovable. He goes on, my face may be unique, but my experiences are not. I believe they're universal. I know that each of us believes that somewhere, somehow, we are deeply flawed and essentially unlovable. The difference is that most of you have had to carry your disfigurements hidden on the inside. He said, my shadow is on the outside, where I have to deal with it. You've not had my advantages. You've not had my advantage in learning to deal with my disability. I have been forced to find my own inner beauty, and I have discovered that I am whole, and so are you. Are we brave enough to name the truth? That when we stop judging others and ourselves, that we can find that each of us is whole. And David Roach uses his work on stage as a storyteller to claim his own healing and his own wholeness and to proclaim ours as well. We're so much more than the package we present. Some of you know the writer Annie Lamott. She's a great friend of David's, and she wrote this about him. When David insists that you are fine exactly the way you are, you find yourself almost believing him. Everyone watching gets happy because he's secretly giving instructions how this could happen for them too. This simple self-acceptance. Now, David lost the great big outward thing, the good-looking package, but the real parts of his heart and his mind and his soul endured. They shine like crazy. The brilliant mind, the humor, the depth of his generosity. And that evening at that community center, the children who attended the performance, mostly in the front rows, understood what he was saying right away. Maybe they hadn't had all those years of prejudice yet to that they weren't able to grab the beauty and the humor that he offered, and what he was saying to them was true. And by the end of the performance, the kids were looking up at him like he was a rock star. I snuck a look at my son. His face had softened. His eyes had not only accepted David, but admired him. And I knew that admiration and affection had replaced the revulsion I had felt when David stepped into the spotlight. Nearing the end of his performance, David said, when I came out on stage and I told you to look at me, you know, I was looking at you too. I could see the feelings on your faces. I could see that you were repelled, what you saw. And I've been watching you all through my performance, all through my storytelling here tonight, and I've seen your faces change. As you came to know me and my story, you felt differently. He paused and then he said to us, I look different to you now, right? And we all nodded. I've been forced to find my inner beauty, he said in closing. Doing that gave me a deep faith in myself. And that faith has been a window, and I can see the beauty in you too. The light in your eyes, the warmth. So thank you. Thunderous clapping begins, and David bows shyly, ducking his head, and then he holds his delicate hands out as if he were going to give us a benediction, and he disappears behind the curtain. The reading today is from the book The Little Prince by Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. And it says, "Here is my secret. It's quite simple. One sees clearly only with the heart. Anything essential is always invisible to the eyes." And let's join in singing hymn number 128. Peace be with you.
So a reminder that we will gather and across the lobby for some coffee and snacks and fellowship. And then we will come back here. Let's say we'll come back here at 11 o'clock for a talk back with Joan. Okay? Our closing words come from Swami Ramdas. Just as a flower gives its fragrance to whomsoever approaches or uses it, so love from within us radiates towards everybody and manifests as spontaneous service.